Welcome to the second episode of the TN series, Going Serverless with Azure Functions. In this episode, we are going to create a function pipeline on the Azure portal. In the last episode, we talked about the fundamentals of Azure Functions. We talked about what Azure Functions is, how it is different from other services, the payment models, and the triggers and the bindings. We covered all the basics we need to get started with Azure Functions. And today, this will be a more hands-on approach where we create our first Azure function using the Azure portal. The scenario is a simple notification service pipeline where we have two Azure functions working together to act as a function pipeline. This notification service has two functions, a webhook triggered receive notification function and a queue triggered send email function that sends out the notification as an email. This is a graphical overview of what we are going to build today. First, the receive notification function, which is a webhook triggered function, gets triggered by a third-party service and it will process the incoming payload and put a message onto an Azure storage queue. This queue message will trigger the send email function, where the send email function will process the message from the queue and it will generate the email. Then it will use the SendGrid output binding that has built-in support in Azure Functions to send out the email to the recipient. Now we have a clear understanding of what we are going to build today, and it's time to start building the Azure function pipeline. We will use the Azure portal to do this, and let's start by creating our first function. So let's get on with the demo. So you can see here, this is the, if you remember the first episode of TN Going Serverless with Azure Functions, we created a function application in Azure portal called TN Functions. So there I actually took you through the features and the capabilities of Azure Functions on the portal, and we will use this existing function application to create our first functions. So to start with, what we need to do is create the receive notification function. To do that, I'm going to click on this new function button over here, and I'm going to create a custom function by clicking on this thing, and I'm going to select C# as my language. And here, what we are going to use is a generic webhook function. So I'm going to select this template from here, generic webhook, and I'm going to name this as receive notification. And I'm going to create the function. So the initial function is created, and we have some code in there to process the payload of the function. And before we start, we will go into this integrate section and look at the configurations of the trigger that this function has. First of all, we need to decide which method we are going to allow to trigger this function. So you have this allow HTTP method section in the configurations, and we can select, right now by default it is selected as all methods, but we can go ahead and select selected method, and there will be an additional area that has all the HTTP methods listed, and we can just enable post and get rid of everything else. So I'm going to do that right now. And the next configuration option is the mode of the HTTP trigger. So this will be a standard trigger or a webhook trigger. In a standard trigger, all of the payload types is available and it's accepted. But when we select a webhook, it will only accept JSON payload. So in this situation, we need a JSON payload. So I will select webhook, and we can rename this request parameter name. This is the actual input binding that gets bound to in the application. And I'm not going to change that. I'm going to keep it as it is. And next option is the route template. So we can add custom route templates as well, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep the default one, which is the function name. And the final configuration option we have is the webhook type. By default, Azure Functions support GitHub and Slack has built-in support. So since this is a third party, this is triggered by a third party, we are just going to use generic JSON. and authentication related to this we can handle it ourselves. So these are the basic configurations that we have. I'm going to save this, and since this Azure portal provides a great new UI to configure these options, but you have the code behind as well. So if you go into this advanced editor section and click on this, you can see the functions.json file which contains all these bindings, and that you can actually go in and edit this. So when you become more comfortable with the functions, most of the time you will be editing this file instead of going to the UI. So I'm going back to the UI and continue from there. So what I'm going to do now is go back into the function, and we have some code that is available to us. So what I'm needing is to actually bind to a strongly typed object. So here we are getting this dynamic object where this JSON content is deserialized, the JSON payload is deserialized, but it's better to work with a properly typed type. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a class which can contain some properties. So I'm going to bring in that code. So this is a modification class that I need to work with, and this has 4 properties: notification ID, email, subject, and the content. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deserialize the incoming payload to a notification object. So I'm going to replace this line of code. We are deserializing this to deserialize to a notification object. And what we can do is I'm going to remove this section of code where it does some checks to make sure that it is available, and I'm going to replace the final response as well, and it will be this. So right now we have a basic structure of a function which is binding to a solid type that we created, and we can see the logs over here in this log section, and it's a good idea to save often, because as soon as you save this, it will actually compile and show you if there are any errors. So right now we have the compilation successful, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to trigger this function and see what is happening. So before that, I'm going to actually copy this line here, and I just want to print out the email address that is coming in this notification object, and I'm going to just print it out to make sure that we are receiving the object without any issues again. And to trigger this, we need the URL for this Azure function, and I'm going to click on this get function URL, and you can copy the URL here, which has a authentication code attached to it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open Postman, and I'm going to paste the URL here. And this is we are only enabling post HTTP methods, so I'm going to select post, and I'm going to add body to this. It's a raw JSON I'm going to send. So I'm going to select raw, and I'm going to select application JSON as well. It will add the content type header to this as well. So I'm going to get a JSON payload to send to the Azure function. I'm going to paste it here. So it has the notification ID and email address of the recipient, the subject, and content. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to send this and see what happens. So in this scenario, we are getting this message: notification request received. So let's see if this function is triggered properly. So you can see the webhook was triggered, and the email address is printed here, and the function completed successfully. So this portion is complete. So what we need to do now is, as per the scenario, we need to process this and output this to a Azure storage queue. So that means we need to add an output binding, and let's go do that now. So in the integrate section, I'm going to go to output bindings, and we can add another binding. So if you remember the first episode, we talked about an HTTP, the Azure function can have only one trigger, but it can have multiple input and output bindings. So in this situation, I'm going to add a new output binding, and this is going to be a Azure storage queue, and I'm going to select this, And this also has multiple configuration options available to us. The first one is the message out parameter name, which is the output binding that we are going to add into the function that we created. So I'm going to replace this with output item, and this queue name we can also put any queue name that we want. I'm going to add notification. We don't need to actually go in and create this queue. It will actually create the queue automatically. And we also have the ability to create a new storage connection. So this is a storage connection string that is added to the Azure Functions application settings. And by default, we have 3 options available. If you want to create a new Azure storage account and add that to the functions, you can do that as well. Just click on new, and it will take you to select an existing one, or you can go ahead and create a new one. Since we already have one, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to select the Azure Web Job Storage and select that. I'm going to save this. And if I go back into the advanced return, you can see a new binding section is also added here. So now that configuration is complete, we need to go back into the receive notification function and add this to the queue that we want. So we need to actually now add this parameter to this function. So how we can do that is, there are multiple ways of doing it. So in the output binding section in the documentation, you can see we can bind to any type using this out keyword. It can be a serialized JSON object, a string, a byte array, or any one of these queue output message, cloud queue messages, and a cloud queue. It also supports this iCollector interface and iAsync collector interface, which is coming from the Azure Web Job SDK, which supports async operations as well. So if you look at this function, we cannot use out keyword here since this is an async function. So it is best to use the iAsync collector or iCollector interfaces and use that to bind to our object. The benefit of using iCollector or iAsync collector is you can add multiple items to the queue at the same time. So it's just a matter of adding the item to the queue, and the function, when the function is executed, it will automatically add that messages to the queue. So I'm going to add a line where this particular line will add the notification object that we deserialized into the queue, and this will actually, after the execution of this function, it will actually save that message to the queue. So I'm going to save this and see if there are any compilation errors. There are none. So what we can do is we can trigger this function again. So I'm going to go back to the Postman, and I'm going to send this request without any changes. I'm going to send it again, and it is successful, and the function is also completed successfully. So let's go into the Azure queue, rather the storage account. I'm in the queues section, and I'm going to refresh this. So you can see now this is there is a new queue available as notification. So this is automatically created by the Azure function, and I'm going to select it, and now you can see there's a new message added. So if I click on this, you can see this is the exact payload that we sent from the function. So that is the first part of the function, and what we need to do is to create a function pipeline. We need to actually create a new function that is triggered by this Azure storage queue message. To do that, we can do it quite easily. So what we need to do is we need to go to this integrate section and select the output binding, which is the Azure queue storage, and this will provide an easy way of creating the next function where the output, you can actually bind to this output binding and use that to act as the next trigger for the function that you're going to create. So in this actions section, you have create a new function triggered by this output, and you can just click on go, and it will automatically select the trigger as the queue trigger, and you just need to populate the options here. So I'm going to add the name here as in the email, which is the name of the function that we need to create next. and the output queue name is already selected since we went to the easy part, and the web storage is also selected automatically. So what we need to do is just click on it and the function is created for you. So let's get into the integrate section again. So now you can see as soon as the function was created, it already got triggered by the message that we had in the queue, and you can see that output is actually printed in the logs as well. So we are going to change a little bit to for our preference, and I'm going to rename this to a message, and this is the output parameter, input parameter name. So I'm going to go back and change that as well. So if you go back into the documentation, you can see in the queue trigger you can actually bind to normal normal objects, and if it is or if the message is coming in or the payload is a JSON object, it will actually deserialize and populate that object for you. You can also bind to string and byte arrays and cloud queue messages as well. So what I'm going to do is, what we are using is this type that we created, notification type, and I'm going to bring that in again so we can bind that. So I'm going to paste this code here. So now you can see we are doing some amount of duplication here, but this is okay since this is a demo application. But I will show you in an upcoming episode how you can share code and how you can avoid this code duplication altogether. So I have added the notification class here, and I'm going to replace this string as a notification type, and I'm going to change the variable name as well. So let's save it and see if there are any compilation errors. No, there are none. So next what we need to do is add the output line, which will actually send the SendGrid message or SendGrid email using SendGrid. So let's go back into integrate section, and next we need to select an output binding. I'm going to click on this new output, and this time I'm going to select SendGrid. We have also video available for SMS notifications if you want, but I'm going to go with SendGrid, and I'm going to click on this and select. And we have multiple configuration options here as well. So the first option is the message parameter name, which is I'm going to keep as default as message. And the second one is one of the most important configurations to get this working. This is the SendGrid API key. You can get a SendGrid API key from by having an account on SendGrid, and you can go up into settings and API keys. You can create your own API key here. You just need to copy it and have it with you. And this is actually an application setting that is stored in the Azure Functions app configuration or app settings section. So I'm just going to show that to you, and this is the key of the application setting. We have the value value will be the SendGrid API. You have also this to address, which you can hardcode if you are using only one address, but this is not the case with us. And you can hardcode the from address, the message subject, and the message text if you want, and this will be added to the function to release the file. But we are not going to do that. I'm going to actually code that or programmatically do that. So this configuration is complete now. I'm going to save it, and to add the notification or rather to add the SendGrid API key, I'm going to go back into this Azure functions. I'm going to click on here and go into platform features, where we can click on this application settings section. It will open up the application settings for you. And if you navigate down here, I have already added the SendGrid API key, and I have added the API key here. So this is actually Azure function will pick this up and use it to send the email. So I'm going to go back into the function. Now what we need is, if you go into the documentation, what you need to do is actually bind to this email type, like this email object. So we can use the out keyword here since this is not an async function. So let's do that. Go ahead and do that and add that parameter to bind that output line. So I'm going to add that here, and as soon as you save, you will be getting some compile errors because this mail is not part of the default libraries available to this. So this is an external external DLL that we are trying to use, and since this is not imported already, we need to import it. And since SendGrid is supported natively by Azure Functions, we don't have to install any NuGet packages or any other packages. It is already there, but we need to reference that. To reference that, you can have this hash R statements where you can actually import in DLLs to your application, and this is with this line you are actually importing that DLL into it, and you are able to use the namespaces there. So I'm going to add the namespace as well to import this namespace, and we are actually ready to move forward. So next step is just to pass through the notification object and populate the email. So I'm going to bring in some code tester. So I'll explain it once we complete it. So I'm going to paste this in. So to do this, we need to actually create a personalization object, and I'm going to create that personalization object here and add the email or the recipient's email from the notification object here. Then what we need to do is we need to add the message content. The type will be text HTML, and I'm going to add the content from the notification object that we deserialized. Finally, I'm going to create this new message object, and I'm going to add that personalization and the content objects that we created, and the subject is taken from the deserialized notification object. And this is the from email that will be on the email that we send. We can actually hard code this into the application itself, but I'm going to just do it programmatically here. So let's save this and see if there are any other issues. So comparison is successful. Now what we can do is we can go ahead and trigger the function again and see if we are getting any emails. So I am here in my email inbox, and let's see after I trigger this function what happens. So I'm going to trigger this again. We got a successful feedback here, and this receive notification function was also successful, and this notification was also received. So let's see if we got an email here. Yes, we have an email. If we open this up, we have the subject that we sent and the content and the from email address as well. So that is how you quickly create a function pipeline using Azure Functions. So we are actually done with the demo. Let's just quickly recap what we have done so far. So as a summary, to summarize, what we did was we created a simple notification service consisting of two Azure functions working as a function pipeline. One is a webhook triggered function with a queue output binding, and the other was a queue triggered function with a SendGrid output binding that sends the email to the recipient. So I hope you understood the demo that we did, and you have a good understanding of how to create Azure functions with Azure portal, and how you can configure the Azure functions as well. So we covered how we can add triggers and output bindings and chain functions together to create a function pipeline. And in the upcoming episodes, we will talk about more topics related to Azure functions, including local development and debugging, and publishing Azure functions through Visual Studio, and creating a continuous integration for Azure function applications. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of T&T, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.